Welcome to Service Above Self, a television program intended to highlight the good work being done in the name of community service. Polio is the name of a disease that people in the United States hardly know anything about anymore. Once upon a time, it was a disease that crossed this country in epidemic proportion, but now people only know of it as something that perhaps former President Franklin Delano Roosevelt had that caused him to have to walk with crutches or use a wheelchair. But in the 50s, with the advent of vaccines coming out, it was pretty much eradicated in this country, but it's not gone worldwide. To help us talk about that tonight is we have two gentlemen from Rotary, past District Governor Jim Duza and Prasad Menon, incoming District Governor in District 7890. And guys, it's been really a long time. It's been over 50 years since polio was a problem in this country. They came out with a vaccine that was invented by Jonas Salk, and as kids we probably all had this vaccine and didn't even know about it, but that didn't solve the problem worldwide. So what type of things do we still have? I mean, as far as the work that needs to be done, and what is Rotary doing to help with this problem? Jim?
On a global effort, in 1984, Rotary International launched Polio Plus to really take on the task of eradicating this disease. It would only be the second disease eradicated from this planet, smallpox being the first. So it was really a giant step and a commitment to take on this task. So with the effort, they made a commitment, Rotary made a commitment of $120 million towards the cause of Polio Plus with the hope of eradicating polio. That was in 1984. They made huge strides. In 2001, Europe became polio-free. The Western Hemisphere next was polio-free. And now we jump to 2008. There's only 4 countries left that have polio: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, and India. And we think we have 4 countries left. That sounds rather large. But at the end of 2009, there was only 1,313 cases of polio in the world, thanks to Rotary International. Rotary's received a lot of help. They've received help from the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and most recently, the commitment from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with a contribution of $350 million given to Rotary International to help eradicate polio, $200 million of which was a matching grant.
If someone catches polio, what are the symptoms? What happens to them? What makes this disease so terrible, so insidious?
Well, the symptoms initially start as some cold and fever, and then you'll see the person start shaking when they walk, and then within no time, within days, the person generally get paralyzed, waist down most of the time. And there are cases where the person totally paralyzed, and in some cases they die of polio too. But majority of the cases they become crippled.
So it's not really the type of a disease when the onset of it is something that's terribly dramatic. It doesn't necessarily in the beginning seem any different than any other common cold, for instance, and yet the results of that disease are absolutely devastating to a person, interfering with their ability to pretty much do anything.
That's correct.
And so the ability to walk, to work, to be able to attend school, anything like that could happen because of that. So it's really a devastating disease. So Rotary has a program to help in immunization of this disease, and if you could tell us about that program.
Yes. Rotary started this program in Philippines first. The local Rotary Club started the program, and they came up with the idea they want to eradicate polio from their area. And that was highly successful in a very short time. So they approached Rotary, because Rotary is the collection of clubs. And they approached the Rotary International, and the people who were running the Rotary International at that point were very ambitious, and they thought this is one of the greatest ideas. So they decided that $125 million, about 4 years time frame, we should be able to eradicate polio, because there was 125 countries at that time with polio incidents, and about 1,000 persons a day contracted polio. That's about 350,000 a year. And it was an ambitious program. Program started, went on for about 4 years. Though our goal was $125 million, in United States alone, we raised $125 million. The total money we raised was around $220 million against it. But as we went along, we realized it is a much bigger problem than we thought. It is not a $125 million 4-year program. We learned enough about it in 4 years. We said this is going to be much longer. We have to stay at it because the results have been dramatic after we started. So we decided to continue, and we continued on. The first time the dramatic results we were published all over the world was in 2006. Less than 2,000 people were afflicted with, in a year, came down with polio compared to that 350,000. And there's only 4 countries left at that point with polio endemic, which was Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, and Nigeria. Predominantly Muslim populated countries. So there was a lot of resistance to polio immunization.
Now, with polio immunization, I would say that as far as immunization is concerned, it's really not a big deal, right? I mean, you're not talking, in this case, even an injection with a needle or anything like that. How little it takes as far as this vaccine and the way it's given is pretty amazing, because it's simple, right?
Very simple. Very simple to administer once you get there. We are talking about the developing countries. Like if you take Pakistan and Afghanistan, there's mountains. There are no transportation to those countries. And Nigeria, the temperature goes to 100, 105 degrees. The vaccine has to be kept around 58 degrees, otherwise it loses its effect. So walking to these places, because a lot of areas there is no transportation. Even if you have transportation, you cannot go there. So to reach these children, to immunize them, became the biggest problem. Okay, so, and especially in places like Afghanistan and Pakistan, war going on. How do you get to a country waging war? Rotarians can go there with these drops without getting killed.
So that's it. Just a couple of drops of a liquid, and that's it.
Right.
You don't get polio. It's that simple.
That is correct.
It's just a matter of getting those 2 drops to where they need to be. So we've actually got a video that illustrates what some of the steps are that are needed to be done in order to get this vaccine to where it needs to go. And hopefully we can take a look at that now.
Rotarians know that eradicating polio is a long and difficult journey. They have to target high-risk areas, maintain the integrity of a live polio vaccine, and mobilize the community. Maybe you've seen the drops squeezed into a child's mouth, or the activity at a National Immunization Day, or NID. We want to show you what it takes to get here, a drop in every child's mouth. It's April 21st, 2008, 6 days before the Subnational Immunization Day, or SNID. SNIDs are designed to target rural areas and resistant communities. One of these areas is the 1,200 miles of soft border between India and Nepal. To show how the vaccine gets there, we followed it through northern India, from New Delhi to Lucknow and northeast into Nepal. Since the polio vaccine is live, it must be kept cold from factory to immunization. This is called the cold chain. New Delhi Rotarians went to a factory that manufactures the polio vaccine. The manager of quality assurance explains the heat-sensitive technology embedded on each vial.
On high temperature, whenever you put this vial beyond -20 or at ambient temperature, this has a property to change its color.
The journey from factory to immunization can last hours, even days through intense heat and traffic. Many of the roads through rural villages are narrow and can only be reached by motorcycle or bicycle. Even the grassroots level worker knows how important it is to maintain the cold chain and how to tell if the vaccine goes bad. Rotary is everywhere. To get the word out, banners are hung over main roads and draped over roadside kiosks. Many of these banners are funded by members of Rotary through its Polio Plus program. In Nepal, Rotarians hire rickshaw drivers with microphones and walk the streets to inform families about the upcoming immunization day. Rotarians live in the communities they serve, so they're in a perfect position to foster relationships with partners.
A Rotarian somewhere will have the right connections to be able to reach the right person with the right message, the positive message, and to promote polio eradication.
Rotarians also foster relationships with resistant communities. For example, cases of polio were rising in Muslim neighborhoods, so local Rotarians worked with Muslim religious leaders. Rotarians helped dispel their suspicion that the polio vaccine caused infertility. Polio cases among Muslim families have decreased 40% since 2007.
We can have posters, banners, we can have all sorts of material, but all of this is nothing as compared to the fact that we need Rotary to touch the heart of people, to touch the heart of the families.
The risk of poliovirus transmission from India into Nepal has increased partly because there is no border regulation. Merchants and families travel freely across the border every day. On April 27th, India and Nepal held simultaneous SNIDs. There were immunization booths less than a half a mile apart for 1,200 miles. In a border city called Burgunj, Nepalese Rotarians set up storefront immunization booths in the city, and on the outskirts of town, used a table and chair on a villager's front porch. This is what it takes to get a drop in every child's mouth.
Well, I think that's pretty amazing, you know, the fact that it takes so little to really cure somebody from polio, but certainly as that video showed us, the difficulty in getting in there is really the key, in the sense that here you've got a perishable vaccine, and if it doesn't be maintained cold all the way, then it's just not going to work. So that's certainly something that impresses me quite a bit. So what do you guys think about the difficulty in that? It's not like they can, you know, just drive this with a car to get where it needs to be.
That's correct. The vaccine, 2 drops to save a child's life at 60 cents, but the majority of the fundraising we need now is to maintain that cold chain supply. That's where the majority of the money is being spent, to make sure that that vaccine doesn't get above 50 degrees.
Right, because we saw in the video the fact that it had been packed in dry ice and cold packs and stuff used to make sure that it gets there, and I believe what it was colored in order to show that if it had warmed up past a point where it couldn't be used, and it would turn from its kind of red color to clear or something like that.
A bluish color.
A bluish color, and then you know it's no good and it won't work. Yes. So that's a pretty amazing type of a thing. And the fact that they have to really do entire communities and in many cases entire nations in one day to eradicate this, because it could come back. If you don't get everybody immunized, then if somebody still has it, they could infect other people who don't have it, younger generation, children not yet born. It could affect them as well. Now, Prasad, you've actually attended some of these programs known as National Immunization Days,
Yes.
and if you could tell us some about your experience with that.
Oh, I'm happy to. It's one of my exciting times. Well, as you can see this picture, there's so much story behind these pictures. First of all, as you mentioned, we have to catch all these children in pretty well in one shot because they are not stationary, they move from even country to country. So it's extremely important to catch them all in one shot. That means you need the human power to go around to immunize these children, especially in areas where there is, transportation is, very difficult. And so we depend upon lots and lots of volunteers. And was one of my dreams to go for one of these things, because unless you experience it yourself right there, you can read and you can see in pictures. Experiencing something yourself is a very different thing. So I had an opportunity to go with a dozen other Rotarians, 2 from Canada, and the rest, 11 of us from the United States, from different parts, all Rotarians, to go to Nigeria. Now, these 4 countries where we have the, it's called polio endemic countries, with the help of World Health Organization, we have scheduled national immunization days. So we get scores of volunteers over there for that. So I was one of those volunteers. My group was one of the group that went to Nigeria to take part in the national immunization days in November of 2008, very close to Thanksgiving time. We were there for Thanksgiving. And we were there about 12 days, just under 2 weeks. And we targeted 2 particular cities, or, they are cities, of course, but the northern Nigeria is very, very poor. We cannot comprehend the kind of poverty they have. At the same time, the southern part of Nigeria, that's where they have the oil. But none of that money really gets to the north. So people are very poor, and they are almost 99% Muslims. And they have 4 or 5 wives, 10, 12, 20, 18, 20, 22 children. Plus, they have nothing. So the poverty and the slums are the norm in the area. So we decided to go there first, and we went there, and the local Rotarians arranged to have interpreters and the people who know the area, because we don't know the area. We are foreigners, and there are no direction signs or nothing there. So these local Rotarians came with us. So we divided ourselves into 6 teams. So mostly 2 Rotarians from here and 1 Rotarian from Nigeria who knows the area, who speak the language. So early morning, we start walking. We get dropped off with a rented van. We rented it ourselves. We get dropped off. We start walking, going to door, and we didn't have any resistance from anybody at that point. I'll come to the story about resistance a little later. I'll show you some of the pictures. So these children haven't seen foreigners, okay? Because there's no reason for any foreigner to go to these places. So they were very excited to see us. You can see the smile. This was in a mosque, because we have to catch them all where they congregate. So Fridays are their Muslim religious day. They all congregate in the mosque. So this is a mosque where they all came out. And this is a 1-room school. And see the smile, they're so happy to see us. And we are happy to see them too, because we are there for a purpose. But you also see some of the sad things. Like, it's a 10-year-old child is responsible for the siblings. You know, mother may be working somewhere, they may not have a father anywhere near. So, but they still took the trouble to bring the siblings for the immunization. You can see that, you know, how dedicated they are to get immunized at this stage of the game. Now, this child had immunization already. Big smile, doesn't have to worry about getting polio. But this is a little bit out of sequence, but we finished in Kaduna. Then our next town was a place called Jos. Now, Jos has pockets of Christian population, which is a little different from Kaduna. It's about 3-hour drive south of Kaduna. So the day before we left, we saw in the local television, we had 15-inch television, black and white. We got BBC, CNN, and the soccer channel. So both BBC and CNN said there's a big riot going on in Jos. Overnight, about 400 people were killed, and everything was burned. Army took over, so it is dangerous to go there. So we waited for a day to see how things goes. But then we came to know from the news that Army took over, checkpoints, tanks and machine guns and all those. So we decided to go. We went to Jos. We came to the first checkpoint. This is the checkpoint when you see here, with the Army tank, the people sitting behind it with machine gun. And we were all in a van, and the Army personnel came to us and said, "Where are you going?" So we said, "This is our purpose." We had our uniform saying Rotary Immunization Team. So we explained to them what we're going to do, and it was amazing. They said, "Go ahead, we will be there to help you when you need help. Thank you for coming." So they opened the gate, and we went through about 16 different checkpoints, and what we saw is scenes like this while we were going. And we were told not to photograph anything there, but I was photographing, taking a chance. You can see the distraction. Okay.
So you certainly have a lot more problems than simply transportation of the vaccine itself. Once you get there, obviously local troubles are some of the things, and of course the resistance to things that foreigners bring.
That's right.
So you're not always welcome with open arms, particularly in
not
Islamic,
necessarily.
Yeah, not in Islamic populations as well. They tend not to want to take the vaccine for reasons that they think that there's problems with it.
Yes. Now, we arranged several things before we went with the local Rotary clubs. One of the things we arranged was donation of 25 wheelchairs to the polio victims who already had polio. They were crippled. So to get them up so they can go to school or do something. So this is the scene where, we made the donation of the wheelchair to this. Now, the areas we walked, these are the kind of places we walked. You can see the open sewer, and we basically have to crisscross to stay a little bit sanitary or, for hygiene reasons. And there are areas where before we went, we tied plastic bags on our shoes, so even if we, get into those things, we're still safe to go back to our rooms.
Absolutely, and polio is obviously not the only problem here. There's other diseases that
any kind of disease you can think of in this area, because of poor hygiene, they have that problem. Now, this is one of the Rotarians who walked with us. That is my partner, 80-year-old Ann Williams from another district. He's a past district governor. And those two young ladies are the one-room school teachers who came out and helped us out. And this is another mosque. And everywhere they were so happy to see us. Look at that faces. And this was a very unique experience. Sunday we went to a church. There was only one church and happened to be a Catholic church. There's about 200 people. in that church. So we went there very early in the morning, and they had mass every 2 hours. So we found the priest and told him, we will be outside, please announce. So when they come out, the children, we can immunize. So he walked away, then came back and took my hand and said, do you know what to say? I said, yes, come and say it. So in the church, the music was going on, prayer was going on, and he took me all the way to the pulpit, stopped everything and said, it's all yours. It was kind of intimidating because I've never been to a church pulpit, you know. Anyway, I think they understood me. I spoke to them and came out. They all came to get immunization, and that is the scene you see here. And I talked to you about resistance from the Muslim fundamentalists about vaccine and vaccinating children in Muslim countries. About 3 years ago, things have changed because they had a major measles epidemic. A lot of children died, and they basically changed their thinking about vaccination. Now they wholeheartedly support, and this is the tribal chief. Now, Nigeria has a federal government, state government, but what the tribal chief says goes. They run the country. So some of the tribal chief came with us, walked around with the, asking them to come out to get vaccinated. So this is a very typical scene you may not have seen 3 years ago.
Right. So that's an excellent thing. So that helps you to really to make sure that you got everybody in the community, because it's very important to completely snuff this out. Because if you don't, there's no reason that this polio couldn't go to another community.
That is correct.
Or in the global economy we have now, just an airplane away from coming back to the United States, because it could still spread here again.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of making sure that we finish this up and completely eradicate polio in the world, so that we could be done once and for good.
That is right.
So thanks, gentlemen, for coming in and giving us a little more knowledge about the fight against polio. For Service Above Self, I'm Clark Mason, encouraging you to go out and find a worthy cause and lend a helping hand.